Hello and welcome to this new episode of a WCO Integrity Webseries hosted by the Anti-Corruption and Integrity Promotion Program. As you know, our purpose here is to invite customs experts from around the world and shed some light on issues relating to integrity in customs. This week, we will discuss how we can measure integrity in customs. And to do so, we have here with us today Makar Vedelice, WCO Technical Officer and Performance Measurement Lead Official.
Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to discuss this important and interesting topic.
Thank you, Makan. I know you have quite a lot to say today, so here you go, the floor is yours.
Well, before we talk more specifically about measuring corruption and integrity, I would like to just briefly highlight the broader work the WCO is currently doing in the area of performance measurement. We are helping to strengthen performance measurement culture more generally among WCO members. This is being driven by the newly established WCO Working Group on Performance Measurement. Part of the work of this group is to act on the recent decision taken by the WCO members to develop a performance measurement mechanism. This will be a recognized scoring mechanism that will incorporate all customs competencies, including integrity, and aims to enable strategic and evidence-based policymaking processes in customs administrations and assist countries with revenue mobilization and the safe and smooth movement of goods. While a broad view across a variety of performance areas is very important to any customs administration, being able to specifically measure corruption is critical for those looking to tackle the issue more directly. Well, there are several reasons for this, not least because it helps reveal the nature, scope, and impact of corruption, as well as develop effective anti-corruption responses. The latter is particularly necessary in order to focus and prioritize efforts in the face of limited resources. Furthermore, the collection, analysis, and utilization of quantifiable data on performance provides accountability and credibility and can motivate stakeholders to take necessary action to combat corruption. I'm sure you have heard the common phrase, numbers speak louder than words. Although it is clear that it's very important that we find ways to measure corruption. It's widely recognized that this is much easier said than done. Corruption can take many different forms. This cannot be easily measured in a single indicator. The causes of corruption are more often than not non-linear and result from very complex environments. For these and many other reasons, corruption often remains largely hidden. Currently, the two most common ways we see integrity measured are numbers of corrupt acts and perception of corruption. For example, the indicators that have been proposed for countries to measure their success in achieving the United Nations Sustainable Development Goal looks to the number or proportion of people who offered or were asked to pay a bribe to public officials. Perhaps the most commonly cited measurement of corruption is Transparency International's Corruption Perception Index, which aims to provide data on extensive perceptions of corruption within countries. However, there are several pitfalls in many of the ways one measures corruption or integrity. Firstly, How we define corruption is subjective, and there is a lack of consensus over what constitutes an act of corruption. Definitions are usually driven by normative or policy demands. Also, there is a problem of perverse indicators. Well, this is particularly tricky when it comes to counting corrupt acts, and is also one we encounter in customs enforcement activities. If numbers of cases of bribery go up, does that really mean that corruption is increasing, or that our capacity to detect bribery is improving? Tricky. Oversimplification is also an issue. Things are not black and white, yeah? And within the context of customs, using all 10 key factors of the revised social declaration is extremely important to grasp the whole spectrum of what corruption is in customs and how one can fight it. And finally, comparative analysis can also be insufficient. This can be true for comparisons across countries, institutions, areas of customs, as well as different forms of bribery and corruption.
So basically, we know there are challenges and we are working on ways to overcome them.
Exactly. In fact, the most recent common consensus is that rather than focusing on a one-size-fits-all approach, it's necessary to combine several different methods of measurement, or hybrid approach, in order to establish a more comprehensive understanding of the norms, incentives, and environment that shapes corruption or integrity. By using multiple sources of information, this helps create a more robust evidence base.
That's interesting. Can you please explain a bit more about what the WCO can offer its members in terms of different methods of measuring corruption?
Well, certainly, as you know, the issue of tackling corruption is not a new one for our members, and so performance measurement in the area of integrity is not an entirely new concept to the WCO members. Qualitative diagnostics and assessments form an important dimension of performance measurement indicators. And as early as 2005, the WCO's Customs Capacity Building Diagnostic Framework was developed, with an entire section dedicated to assisting diagnosis of a customs administration's needs in the area of good governance and integrity. And later in 2010, while working jointly with the World Bank, the WCO helped develop a system of performance contracts designed to strengthen the chain of command by holding each link in that chain accountable. Quantitative activity, performance, control, and risk indicators were employed with the aim to provide an effective decision-making tool and to reduce corruption. Findings from this particular exercise were later incorporated into a new guidance tool for the WCO members, which is called the Why and How of Performance Measurement Contracts. Performance indicators identified by the WCO at this time were also incorporated into UNCTAD's A-CIP system for performance measurement, which automatically draws performance data from the customs management system. And most recently, the WCO's Integrity Development Guide, with which those who have also listened to the previous episodes of the web series are now somehow familiar, expands on the diagnostic framework and includes a self-assessment tool aiming at assessing the current integrity situation and a customs administration. And in addition, WCO members can look to other important benchmarking tools, such as the time release study, which can be an indirect indicator of what's happening at the border with regards to corrupt behaviors. We are also working with other partners, such as International Monetary Fund on International Survey of Customs Administrations, so-called ISOCA, in order to identify and integrate measures that could relate to integrity and corruption as well.
Thank you, Maka. Before we end this very interesting discussion, would you mind sharing some thoughts on how the WCO Anti-Corruption and Integrity Promotion Program has tackled this issue of measuring corruption?
Yes, certainly. As I understand, the WCO A-CIP program has embraced the new hybrid approach and has an inbuilt results indicator framework that utilizes a number of different measurement methods in order to capitalize as much as possible on the benefits of each. This also helps build a comprehensive picture of the environment for corruption in customs, which helps to guide interventions under the program. For example, the program looks at measurements at both the output and outcome levels, assessing the extent to which specific interventions are implementing, as well as behavioral changes as a result of these interventions. Both static and dynamic assessments are made as the program makes use of the WCO diagnostic tools, including facilitated integrated development guide self-assessments to review static integrity systems such as policy frameworks in order to identify problems and areas of risk. At the same time, the program also works with partner administrations to identify dynamic environmental drivers of corruption and their specific contexts. The information is processed at both the micro and macro levels, and experiences and perceptions of stakeholders are taken into account, considering individual option-specific topics related to corruption. The program collects all these different types of data by employing a number of different methods, such as previously mentioned, the use of the Integrity Development Guide, facilitated assessments under scoping missions, as well as review of documentary and material evidence by the WCO experts. These methods primarily gather qualitative information which help provide depth and detail to the overall understanding of what is going on in each situation. The WCO program has also piloted a very interesting new approach, namely a Customs Integrity Perception Survey. This offers a more quantitative perspective on measuring corruption and the participating countries. The fact that this survey has been able to reach so many different respondents from both customs officials and the private sector provides a breadth to the data, complements more detailed information gathered in the aforementioned assessments. We are very interested to see how the A-CIP program continues to develop and utilize these various measurements to support participating members and fighting against corruption.
Yes, and for our listeners, we have added one last slide here to illustrate a bit more about how exactly this survey has been conducted so far in 10 A-CIP partner administrations with over 6,000 respondents. So although the full results of the survey are data protected, the WCO will be incorporating lessons learned from this first iteration of the survey to the questionnaire and to the methodological guidelines. So this will be made available to all WCO members following review by the Integrity Subcommittee, the ISC, next year. Maka, thank you very much for all of this and for taking the time to record this episode with us. This has been a very interesting conversation.
Really, it was my pleasure, and I was happy to be part of this exercise and hope our audience will have found the presentation interesting and useful.
I'm sure of that. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you soon in the next episode. Bye.